Hi, my name is Ann, and I am an alcoholic from Fort Collins, Colorado. And on the topic of mid-sobriety challenges, I was reflecting back on my journey through Alcoholics Anonymous. And as I walked into the doors, I had no experience with AA or 12 steps or anything recovery related. I was as green as you can get. And I really believed that if I didn't do everything to a T, I was going to get kicked out. And so when I was told to get a home group, I got a home group. I was told to get a sponsor, I got a sponsor. I used a sponsor. We went through the steps. We went through the literature. I was Johnny on the spot just because I didn't want to get kicked out. But at no point did I think this stuff was ever going to work for me. And somewhere around maybe step 2, I remember looking at my sponsor and telling her, I haven't had a thought about alcohol today. And I don't know when that started, but I know I haven't thought about alcohol today. And I think that's the weirdest thing that has never happened for me before. And I don't know when it started. And she told me that's what we say in the rooms is when the obsession's been lifted, and that it is a promise of going through the steps that the obsession will lift. And a little while later, I still thought of alcohol. It just wasn't this obsessive round the clock kind of thinking. And a little while later, through the steps, I hadn't even had a thought of alcohol, and I couldn't remember the last time I thought about alcohol, that my life just started to build up around having a sober life, and alcohol wasn't a part of it, and I don't know what day that took place. And before I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a round-the-clock drinker, and if anybody would have told me that coming into AA meant I would live a life where I never even thought of alcohol, I never would have believed it. I genuinely thought that sobriety was about white knuckle, because that's all I knew. If I didn't have alcohol, I was white knuckling it. So as I get through these steps here, and that's not my story, I'm not white knuckling this. I'm hooked. Whatever you're selling, I'm buying, and you've got me for life. Some other things that changed for me in that pink cloud time was I got a job in sobriety. I kept a job in sobriety. I stopped getting arrested. I started becoming self-supporting and paying my own bills. It was a new day, and I'm here for it. So fast forward a few years, and now I'm into about that 7-year itch phase, and I've settled into a routine. And I've got a home group, and I've got routine meetings that I go to, and I'm very predictable. You can always find me at these meetings on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I've got my sponsor. I've got my commitment at the home group. Rinse and repeat. I'm on autopilot. And I remember going to a few of these birthday nights at my home group, and my peers in sobriety, they just seemed like their lives were taking off. All of these beautiful growth spurts in recovery, and I felt stagnant. I'm at the same job, and I'm doing the same thing for the same people, and I'm in the same apartment, and I'm driving the same car, and I'm going to the same meetings, and I'm getting angrier and angrier. Why am I working so hard? And they're the ones getting the gifts of sobriety. Why do I have to work so hard? And I really wanted to walk out the door. I didn't want to drink over that. I'm really grateful that once the obsession was lifted, it has not returned for me, but I for sure wanted out the door. I didn't want any more of this nonsense AA. It's not worth it for me to work so hard and watch someone else get the rewards. I was really, really upset. And when I talked to my sponsor, she told me a couple of things. One was to mind my own business. And whatever I thought I saw in other people's lives and comparing my insides to their outsides, it probably wasn't accurate. And even if it was, it's none of my business. Focus on my own hula hoop. The next thing that she told me was I needed to start lying when I shared in meetings. Because up until this point, when people called on me, I told them all the great things about sobriety. And the truth behind closed doors was I was miserable. And she's getting an earful every day. In meetings, people think I'm just happy joy. And behind closed doors, I am just anger and frustration and resentment and fear and everything the exact opposite of what I just shared in a meeting. So the next time we had that service commitment come up in rotation, I went with my crew, and I ended up getting called on. And I was happy to tell them all about how much I hated sobriety, how much I hated Alcoholics Anonymous, how I felt slighted, and how God sucks, my meetings suck, the program sucks, my home group sucks, and aren't you glad you called on me? This is what 7 years looks like, and I'm sure you don't want what I have. And after I finished sharing, they said, please keep coming back. And at the end of the meeting, a couple of the residents came up to me and asked if they could include me in their prayer that night. That they do a prayer circle and they wanted to pray for me. They knew I was going through a rough time. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me, because in my arrogance, I went and carried that message on behalf of our group. Our group carries service commitments, not that I was carrying the message to them. And in that moment, I can honestly say they carried the message to me. That God knew what he was doing. I just had to suit up and show up, and I had to bring what I had. And I had despair, and I had sadness, and I had fear. And in that meeting, they met my match with joy and hope and excitement and kindness and love. As I continued to go back to my home group and share, I had a running mate who was very happy to laugh along with me about the disturbances I was experiencing. And one day I snapped out of it. It took me a little while, but I did get past it. And then she went through it, and she didn't think it was as funny anymore. And she wanted to know, what did I do when I went through it? I don't have any secrets, but I did tell her that I never stopped going to meetings. I never stopped praying. My prayers got a little bit angrier and more hostile. They probably weren't very productive, but I never stopped the communication. I never stopped talking to my sponsor, and that routine carried me when I didn't want to show up on my own. It kept me from walking out the door. And it's one of the things I impress upon others in recovery is build that routine, because there's going to be days where that momentum has to carry me. I just don't have the will in me to exert any more effort. And that momentum of my routine is what's going to carry me until that flash of God kicks in. So that's how I've stayed sober through midterm challenges.